Let me ask you something. How many relationships have ended? Not because you didn't love her, but because you didn't listen. This message is for the men who believe they are too grown to be corrected, too experienced to be challenged, and too comfortable to change. Because if you think listening makes you weak, you may already be losing the very woman you're trying to keep. Stay with me. This might be the relationship advice you didn't know you needed. Relationship advice every man needs to hear. Why ignoring your partner is costing you love. There's a quiet way relationships fall apart. No shouting, no dramatic breakup, no final argument, just distance. And most of the time, it doesn't happen because love is gone. It happens because one person stopped listening. This message is for the men who believe they're too grown to be corrected, too experienced to be advised, too mature to sit down and really hear their partner. And if that makes you uncomfortable already, good. Because growth begins exactly where discomfort starts. The problem no one wants to talk about is that many men believe listening makes them weak. They confuse leadership with dominance, confidence with control, maturity with emotional silence. So when their partner speaks up, they hear complaints instead of concern. They hear nagging instead of needs. They hear disrespect instead of vulnerability. And slowly, without realizing it, they stop listening altogether. Not because they didn't care or don't care, but because they think they already know better. I'm grown isn't the flex you think it is. Being grown doesn't mean being unteachable. Being grown doesn't mean you figured everything out. Being grown means you understand that learning never stops, especially in relationships. The moment you believe you're too old, too smart, or too experienced to listen is the moment you start losing emotional connection. And emotional connection is the foundation of every healthy relationship. What your partner is really saying that you're missing. When your partner says, "You don't listen to me," they're not asking you to fix everything. They're saying, "I don't feel heard. I don't feel valued. I don't feel emotionally safe with you." That's not criticism. That's a cry for connection. And ignoring it doesn't make you strong, it makes you unavailable. Why so many men shut down instead of showing up? Let's be honest. Many men were never taught emotional connection or communication. You were taught to be tough, be logical, be silent under pressure. So when emotions enter the room, you feel unprepared, uncomfortable, exposed. Instead of admitting that, you retreat into pride. You say things like, "That's just who I am. I don't have time for this." You're overreacting. But what you're really saying is, "I don't know how to handle this, so I'm shutting down." The cost of not listening. Here's the truth most men don't see until it's too late. Women don't leave because one big thing happened. They leave because they spoke and nothing changed. They asked and felt dismissed. They tried and felt alone. By the time she's quiet, she's already exhausted. Silence is not peace. Silence is resignation. And when she stops talking, it's not because things are better. It's because she's preparing to go. Listening is not submission, it's leadership. Real leadership in relationships isn't about control, it's about presence. It's about being strong enough to hear something that challenges you without becoming defensive. Listening doesn't mean you are wrong, it means you're invested. It means you care more about the relationship than about winning an argument. That's not weakness, that's emotional maturity. The difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is waiting for your turn to talk. Listening is trying to understand. When your partner speaks, ask yourself, am I listening to respond or listening to learn? Am I defending myself or understanding her experience? Because the fastest way to shut someone down is to make them feel misunderstood. Why I'm not changing is a relationship killer. Growth is not betrayal of who you are, it's evolution. Every successful man understands this in business, in fitness, in life. But somehow, when it comes to relationships, many men draw a line and say, this is just me. But love requires adaptation, not losing yourself, but expanding yourself. If you refuse to grow, you force your partner to choose between staying unhappy or leaving to protect their peace. What healthy communication actually looks like. Healthy communication in relationships sound like this. I didn't realize that hurt you. Help me understand your perspective. I may not agree, but I respect how you feel. I want to do better. Those words don't weaken you. They build trust, safety, emotional intimacy. And intimacy is what keeps relationships alive. The ego versus the relationship. Every argument presents a choice. Protect your ego or protect the relationship. Ego says, I shouldn't have to explain myself. Love says, this matters to us. Ego says, I'm right. Love says, let's understand each other. You can be right and still lose the relationship. Ask yourself, what matters more? Here's an actionable advice on how to actually listen better. Here's practical relationship advice every man can apply today. Number 1, you're going to pause before responding. Don't react immediately. Let her finish. 2, you're going to repeat what was heard. So what you're saying is, this shows effort and respect. 3, you're going to ask one clarifying question, not to challenge, to understand. 4, don't minimize emotions. Even if you don't agree, emotions are real. 5, you're going to follow words with action. Listening means nothing without change. Why self-awareness is attractive. Nothing is more attractive than a man who can say, I'm still learning. Self-awareness builds respect. It tells your partner, I value you. I take you seriously. I'm willing to grow. And that kind of man doesn't lose relationships easily because he doesn't take them for granted. If this message feels personal, that's the point. This isn't about shaming men. It's about saving relationships. It's about preventing regret. Because one day you don't want to look back and realize the problem wasn't that you weren't loved. It was that you didn't listen. A final reality check. Love doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be present. It asks you to care enough to listen, to reflect, to grow. If you're too grown to listen, you're not grown at all. You're just comfortable. And comfort has ended more relationships than conflict ever has. So, my closing message is this: the strongest men are not the loudest. They're the ones who can sit in discomfort and still choose understanding. They don't dismiss, they don't deflect, they don't shut down. They listen because they know this truth. Love doesn't leave because of mistakes, it leaves because of neglect. And listening, real listening, is one of the most powerful forms of love there is. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Leave a thumbs up on the video and share the videos out with families and friends.